There's a quiet battle we all face, one that rarely shows on the surface but echoes in the space between our thoughts. It's the hum of constant notifications, the pressure of endless to-do lists, the sting of a careless comment that replays in your mind long after the moment has passed. It feels like being caught in a storm with no shelter, where every outside demand tugs at your attention, leaving you feeling stretched thin, reactive, and far from the calm, centered person you wish to be. What if you could step out of that storm, not by running away from life, but by building an unshakable shelter within yourself? This is the profound promise of Stoicism, an ancient philosophy not of cold indifference, but of profound inner strength. It's about learning the art of detachment, not from life itself, but from the chaotic noise that so often robs us of our peace. Today, we are embarking on a journey together to explore 25 powerful Stoic tools, each one a key to unlocking a more graceful and composed way of living. These are not abstract theories, they are practical, time-tested techniques refined by some of history's greatest minds. We'll be drawing from the personal journals of a Roman emperor, Marcus Aurelius, who guided an empire through war and plague by anchoring himself in principle. We'll learn from the letters of Seneca, who faced betrayal and exile with a tranquility that baffled his contemporaries. These individuals weren't sheltered from hardship, they were immersed in it. Their wisdom was forged in the fires of real struggle, and it's precisely why their insights remain so startlingly relevant today. This video is your guide to reclaiming your inner ground. We will walk through each tool step by step, understanding not just the what but the how to apply these concepts when your patience is tested, when disappointment hits, or when anxiety begins to rise. Imagine being able to meet frustration with perspective, to handle loss with resilience, and to navigate success with humility. This is about transforming your relationship with the events of your life, moving from a state of constant reaction to one of purposeful, graceful response. You are about to discover a toolkit for the soul, a collection of mental and emotional practices that can help you cultivate a peace that isn't dependent on perfect circumstances. So take a deep breath and let's begin. Our journey begins with what is perhaps the most fundamental tool in the entire Stoic toolkit, a mental filter that can transform your relationship with the world in an instant. It's called the dichotomy of control. At its heart, this principle makes a simple yet life-altering distinction. Some things are within our power and a great many things are not. What falls squarely within our control, our own judgments, our intentions, the goals we set for our character, and the actions we choose to take. Everything else, the weather, the traffic, the words and actions of other people, our reputation, even our own health and wealth to a significant degree, exists outside the realm of our direct command. The Roman philosopher Epictetus, who began his life as a slave, put it this way: some things are up to us and some are not up to us. Our job is to sort every single event, every single circumstance into one of these two buckets. The power of this tool lies not in the sorting itself, but in what happens next. When we correctly identify something as being outside our control, we make a conscious choice to release our anxious grip on it. We stop wasting our precious mental and emotional energy trying to force a specific outcome. Think about a situation we all know well. You're about to give an important presentation at work. You've prepared thoroughly, you know your material inside and out. This preparation, your effort, your focus during the talk, these are the things within your control. But what about the questions the manager might ask, the mood of the audience, the technical glitch that could happen with the projector? These are not within your control. Applying the dichotomy of control means you pour all of your energy into your preparation and delivery, your internal domain, and you consciously let go of your need for the external elements to be perfect. You accept that they may not be, and you decide that your peace of mind will not be held hostage by them. This is the essence of graceful detachment. It is not a cold, uncaring withdrawal. It is an intelligent and empowering reallocation of your resources. It's the difference between spending an hour after a difficult conversation agonizing over what someone said about you, which is outside your control, and spending that same hour reflecting on how you can act with more integrity going forward, which is entirely within your control. The first path leads to frustration and exhaustion. The second leads to growth and resilience. By making this practice a habit, you build an internal citadel. The storms of external events may rage outside, but inside you are calm, focused, and effective, because you are only concerned with what you can actually influence, your own mind and your own choices. This foundational shift in perspective is the first and most critical step toward the unshakable peace the Stoics promised. Now, if the dichotomy of control is about sorting what we can and cannot influence, the next tool gives us a profound way to handle our attachment to the things we value most. This is the practice of negative visualization, or as the Stoics called it, premeditatio malorum, which translates to the premeditation of evils. At first glance, this might sound like a recipe for anxiety. Why would we willingly think about losing our job, our health, or even a loved one? The Stoic answer is both surprising and deeply wise. Not to make ourselves miserable, but to inoculate ourselves against the shock of change and to ignite a powerful appreciation for what we have right now. Think of it as a form of emotional vaccination. Just as a tiny, weakened virus can train your immune system to handle a full-blown illness, regularly and briefly contemplating the potential loss of what you cherish strengthens your emotional resilience. The goal isn't to live in fear of these possibilities, but to calmly acknowledge that they are part of the natural flow of life. Everything is on loan to us: our relationships, our possessions, even our own lives. By remembering the temporary nature of all things, we stop taking them for granted. The Roman philosopher Seneca urged this practice, suggesting we should tell ourselves, "You have enjoyed what you were given. Take pleasure in it now, but remember it is not yours to keep." Let's make this practical. You might try this for just a few moments each day. As you sip your morning coffee, pause and consider what it would be like if this simple pleasure were gone. Not to dread that happening, but to truly feel the richness of being able to enjoy it in this moment. When you kiss your partner goodbye or hug your child, allow yourself the briefest thought: this is precious and it is not guaranteed forever. This isn't morbid, it's a reality check that instantly transforms a routine gesture into a moment of profound connection and gratitude. The coffee tastes richer, the hug feels warmer, because you are fully present for it, consciously aware of its value. This practice directly attacks the root of our suffering, the assumption that the good things in our lives will always be there. When we operate on that assumption, any threat of loss sends us into a tailspin of anxiety, and an actual loss can feel completely devastating. But if we have already, in the safety of our own minds, gently familiarized ourselves with the idea of loss, we are not caught off guard. We have already done the mental rehearsal. When change comes, as it always does, we are able to meet it not with paralyzing shock, but with a sober, graceful acceptance. We can say, "I knew this was a possibility. I am grateful for the time I had, and I will now face this new reality with strength." This is the equanimity that negative visualization cultivates. It doesn't make you care less, it allows you to care more wisely, with a heart that is both deeply appreciative and resiliently prepared for life's inevitable ebbs and flows. Having established that inner citadel of control and a deeper appreciation for the present moment through gratitude, we now come to a tool that can dramatically shift the very scale of our problems. This is the view from above, a powerful mental exercise that invites you to literally change your point of view. When you find yourself overwhelmed by a situation, a heated argument, a looming deadline, a personal disappointment, the Stoics suggest you take a step back. Not just a small step, but a giant leap into the cosmos. Close your eyes for a moment and begin to zoom out. See yourself in the room, then see the building you're in from above. Pull back further, viewing your entire neighborhood, then your city, which from this height looks like an intricate grid of tiny streets and buildings. Continue this journey outward. See your country as a shape on a map, then the whole earth, a beautiful blue and white marble hanging in the vast blackness of space. From this vantage point, your city is invisible, your country is just a contour. Now contemplate the sheer scale of our solar system, our galaxy among billions of others, stretching across distances so immense they defy comprehension. And then bring your focus back to that tiny, pale blue dot. On that dot, in this fleeting moment of cosmic time, is you with your specific worry. The argument, the project, the criticism, how does it look from here? This practice isn't meant to diminish your life or make you feel worthless. Its purpose is to provide a profound sense of proportion. It recalibrates our internal measuring stick. Our egos have a tendency to inflate our personal dramas to world-ending proportions. A negative comment online can feel like a catastrophe. A professional setback can seem like the end of the road. The view from above shrinks these anxieties down to their true size. It reminds us that we are a small part of an unimaginably vast and ancient universe. The meeting you're stressed about will be forgotten in a year. The embarrassment you feel will fade. This perspective is the ultimate antidote to self-importance. It gently mocks our tendency to believe that our problems are the center of the universe. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius was a master of this. In his private journal, Meditations, he constantly reminded himself to look at the stars and consider the endless cycles of creation and destruction that have come before him. He wrote of how quickly all things are buried in the abyss of time, a thought that brought him solace amid the immense pressures of ruling an empire. You can practice this in everyday moments without needing a full meditation. Stuck in traffic, instead of fuming, look up at the sky. Watch the clouds drift by, indifferent to the gridlock below. This simple act is a mini version of the view from above. It connects you to something larger than the temporary inconvenience, worrying about what people think of you. Contemplate the fact that everyone else is overwhelmingly preoccupied with their own lives, their own struggles, their own tiny spot on the pale blue dot. They are simply not thinking about you as much as you might fear. This realization is incredibly liberating. It detaches you from the prison of perceived judgment. The grace found in this tool comes from a humble acceptance of our place in the cosmos. It allows you to take your responsibilities seriously, but yourself a little less seriously. It transforms anxiety into a kind of quiet wonder, replacing the frantic noise in your head with a calming, expansive silence. You can engage fully with your life, knowing that in the grand, beautiful scheme of things, this momentary trouble too shall pass. Now let's turn our attention inward to the very language we use inside our own minds, because often the source of our distress isn't the event itself, but the story we instantly wrap around it. This brings us to our fourth tool, a mental discipline of immense power, objective representation, which the Stoics called hypolepsis. This is the practice of seeing events for what they are, stripped bare of the dramatic and often harmful judgments we automatically attach to them. Think of it as a form of mental decluttering. When something happens, our first instinct is to label it. We don't just experience a flat tire, we experience a disastrous delay that's going to ruin my entire day. We don't just receive critical feedback, we receive a humiliating attack that proves I'm incompetent. Objective representation asks us to press pause on that labeling process. It invites us to describe the situation in plain, simple, factual terms, as if we were a neutral observer. The core idea is that events in the world are by themselves neutral. They only gain their positive or negative charge from our interpretation. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus made this clear when he said, "It's not things that upset us, but our judgments about things." A rainy day is just a meteorological phenomenon. It is we who decide it is bad because it cancels our picnic. By practicing objective representation, we learn to separate the raw data from the emotional commentary. Instead of telling yourself, "My partner was incredibly rude to me," you would state the objective facts. "My partner spoke in a raised tone and used these specific words." This shift is subtle but transformative. It creates a crucial space between the event and your reaction. In that space, you find the freedom to choose your response rather than being hijacked by a knee-jerk emotion. Consider a practical scenario. You're working on an important project and a colleague points out a significant error in your work during a team meeting. The immediate, unexamined judgment might scream, "This is a catastrophe. They're trying to embarrass me in front of everyone. I look like a fool." This interpretation will likely trigger feelings of shame, anger, and defensiveness. Now apply objective representation. State the facts and only the facts. A mistake was identified in the data on slide 7. My colleague brought it to the team's attention. Notice what is absent from this description. The words catastrophe, embarrass, and fool are gone. The event is no longer a personal attack. It is simply a problem to be solved. From this calm, factual base, you can now respond with grace. You can thank your colleague for their sharp eye, acknowledge the error, and focus the team's energy on correcting it. The situation is handled with professionalism and poise, precisely because you detached from the inflammatory story and anchored yourself in objective reality. This tool is the essence of grace under pressure. It's what allows a surgeon to remain steady when an unexpected complication arises, describing the issue in clinical terms rather than panicking about the disaster. It's what allows a leader to hear troubling news without collapsing into anxiety, instead breaking the situation down into manageable, factual components. You are not suppressing your emotions, you are simply refusing to let an unhelpful initial judgment dictate them. You are taking back the authority to define what things mean. By consistently practicing this when you're stuck in traffic, when a plan falls through, when you face criticism, you train your mind to default to clarity rather than chaos. You build a habit of meeting the world with a calm, discerning eye, which is the very foundation of a graceful and resilient character. Building on the idea of seeing things objectively, we come to a tool that takes acceptance to its most profound and active level. This is the practice of amor fati, a Latin phrase that translates to love of fate. While the previous tools help us detach from what we cannot control and see events without judgment, amor fati asks something more daring of us. It invites us to not merely endure what life throws our way, but to embrace it wholeheartedly, to actually love it. This is the difference between resigned acceptance and enthusiastic participation in your own life story, including every single chapter, especially the difficult ones. The Stoics believed that the universe is a single, rational, interconnected whole. From this perspective, everything that happens is not a random, malicious attack, but a thread woven into a larger, purposeful tapestry. Amor fati is the decision to love the entire tapestry, not just the brightly colored threads. This concept was championed not only by the Stoics but later by philosophers like Friedrich Nietzsche, who famously wrote, "My formula for greatness in a human being is amor fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity. Not merely bear what is necessary, still less conceal it, but love it." This is the radical core of the idea. It's about seeing every event, especially obstacles and setbacks, as necessary and beneficial fodder for building character. An obstacle is no longer a barrier blocking your path. It becomes the path itself. It is the very material you need to develop strength, patience, creativity, or resilience. A setback isn't a sign of failure. It's a course correction, a lesson in disguise that the universe is delivering directly to you. Imagine two artists. The first artist only works with perfect, pristine canvases and high-quality paints. The second artist, however, embraces whatever materials are at hand, a scrap of wood, some faded pigments, even a crack in the surface. The second artist doesn't see these as limitations. They are features that will shape the final work, making it unique and authentic. Amor fati is about becoming the second artist of your own life. When you encounter a personal or professional failure, instead of falling into resentment and asking, "Why did this happen to me?" you can learn to ask, "What does this make possible? What strength can I forge from this experience?" This transforms resentment into opportunity. It enables a graceful dance with fate rather than an exhausting, futile struggle against it. Consider a real-world application. You spend months preparing for a promotion, only to be passed over for someone else. The conventional reaction might be bitterness, a blow to your self-esteem, and perhaps even a desire to quit. But applying amor fati, you would take a deep breath and actively look for the good. Perhaps this failure saves you from a role that would have burned you out, a truth you couldn't see while you were striving for it. Maybe it forces you to re-evaluate your skills, revealing a hidden passion for a different career path you would never have considered otherwise. It could simply be an opportunity to practice humility and perseverance, virtues that are only strengthened in the face of disappointment. By loving this outcome, you are not saying the disappointment doesn't hurt. You are affirming that the hurt itself is a valuable part of your growth. You are choosing to trust the process of your life. This mindset shift is incredibly empowering. It removes the sting of victimhood. When you love your fate, you are no longer a passive recipient of life's whims. You are an active co-creator of your character, using every single experience as your raw material. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius embodied this during the many years he spent leading brutal military campaigns on the distant frontiers of the empire. Far from home and comfort, facing constant danger and hardship, he wrote in his meditations, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." The obstacles, the delays, the betrayals, he saw them all as fuel for his inner fire. This is the ultimate graceful detachment, a profound inner agreement with reality as it is. It allows you to move through life with a quiet confidence, knowing that no matter what happens, you have the capacity not just to survive it, but to weave it into the beautiful, rugged, and uniquely yours tapestry of your character. Now, let's turn our focus inward to the very engine of our attachments, our desires. This brings us to our sixth tool, the discipline of desire. While the dichotomy of control helps us sort what we can and cannot influence, this discipline tackles the root cause of our turmoil, the nature of what we want in the first place. The Stoics observed that a great deal of our anxiety, frustration, and disappointment springs not from events themselves, but from our passionate and often misguided cravings for things that lie beyond our command. We desire a promotion, the approval of others, a certain lifestyle, or a particular outcome in a relationship. When these external things don't materialize as we hope, we feel we have been cheated and our peace is shattered. The purpose of the discipline of desire is not to eliminate wanting altogether, which is an impossible and unnatural task, but to train our desires, to point them in the right direction. The Stoic goal is to shift the primary object of our wanting from external, fragile outcomes to something internal, stable, and entirely within our power, the cultivation of our own character. Instead of desperately wanting to be wealthy, the disciplined desire is to act with integrity and wisdom in all your financial dealings. Instead of craving fame or praise, the focus turns to being a person of honesty and compassion, regardless of who is watching. This is a monumental shift in priority. You are moving the finish line from a result you cannot guarantee to an effort you can always make. Think of your mind as a garden. Unchecked desires are like weeds that sprout uncontrollably, choking the plants you actually want to grow. They demand constant attention and drain nutrients from the soil. The discipline of desire is the practice of careful gardening. It involves regularly examining each want that arises and asking a simple but profound question: is this within my control? If the desire is for an external outcome, like making someone like you or ensuring your business venture succeeds, you recognize that you are setting yourself up for potential suffering. You can do everything right and still not achieve it. The graceful alternative is to redirect that desire. Instead of wanting the specific outcome, you desire to play your part with excellence. You want to be respectful and kind whether the other person warms to you or not. You want to work diligently and intelligently whether the venture succeeds or fails. Your satisfaction is no longer tied to the unpredictable world, but to your own virtuous effort. This practice cultivates a profound sense of inner freedom. When your primary desire is to act with courage, justice, temperance, and wisdom, you carry your source of satisfaction with you at all times. No one can block you from pursuing these qualities. No external circumstance can take them away. A person who has mastered this discipline might face the same setbacks as anyone else: job loss, rejection, criticism. But their inner world remains unshaken because their core desire was never the job or the approval itself. Their desire was to handle the situation with dignity and strength, and in that they have already succeeded. The Roman philosopher Seneca captured this beautifully when he wrote that the wise person is content with what he has and does not long for what he has not. This contentment isn't laziness or a lack of ambition. It is the serene confidence that comes from knowing your worth is determined by your character, not your circumstances. To make this practical, start with a simple nightly review. As you reflect on your day, identify one instance where you felt strong disappointment or frustration. Trace that feeling back to the specific desire that was thwarted. Was it a desire for a particular result, for someone to act a certain way? Acknowledge that desire and then practice the shift. Ask yourself, what would have been the virtuous desire in that situation? Instead of wanting them to agree with me, could my desire have been to understand their perspective patiently? Instead of wanting the project to be perfect, could my desire have been to give it my absolute best effort? This mental rehearsal slowly rewires your habitual wants. Over time, you find yourself less attached to specific outcomes and more committed to the quality of your own actions. This is the heart of graceful detachment, wanting the right things for the right reasons and finding your fulfillment not in what you get, but in who you become in the process. While the discipline of desire guides what we should want, its essential partner is the discipline of action, which directs how we should move through the world. This tool corrects a common misconception about Stoic detachment, the idea that it leads to a quiet, withdrawn life of inaction. Nothing could be further from the truth. The Stoics were deeply engaged citizens, fathers, mothers, leaders, and friends. The graceful detachment we've been exploring is not an excuse to opt out of life's responsibilities. It is the very thing that enables us to fulfill them with greater clarity, justice, and purpose. The discipline of action is about engaging fully and ethically in our roles while simultaneously holding the outcomes of our efforts loosely. It's the art of doing the right thing for its own sake, not for the reward or recognition that might follow. At the heart of this practice is a profound redefinition of what it means to be successful. In our modern culture, success is almost always measured by the result, the win, the profit, the promotion, the number of likes. The Stoics propose a different metric. True success, they argue, lies in the quality of the action itself. Did you act with integrity? Were you fair and kind? Did you contribute to the common good? If you can answer yes to these questions, then your action was successful, regardless of how it was received or what it produced. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of this distinction. Leading armies on the frontier, he wrote, "Your duty is to act, don't look for the outcome. Just do the right thing, the rest is none of your business." This isn't a prescription for carelessness. It's an instruction to pour your entire being into the effort while surrendering your attachment to the final score. Your job is to plant the seed with skill and care. Whether it grows into a tree is subject to 1,000 factors beyond your control. Let's make this concrete with an example. Imagine you witness a coworker being treated unfairly by a manager. The conventional, attachment-heavy approach would be to calculate the risks. If I speak up, will the manager retaliate? Will it harm my own chances for promotion? What if my coworker doesn't even appreciate it? This kind of thinking, focused entirely on the potential personal outcomes, often leads to silence, a failure to act justly. Now apply the discipline of action. The question shifts from "what will happen to me" to "what is the right thing to do here?" Your role as a colleague and a person who values fairness demands that you address the injustice. You prepare to have a respectful, clear conversation with the manager. You focus all your energy on acting with courage and tact. That is the entire scope of your success. Whether the manager listens or not, whether your coworker thanks you or not, whether there is any blowback or not, these outcomes are separate from the value of your action. You have already succeeded by choosing to act rightly. This focus liberates you from the emotional roller coaster of external validation. An artist who creates purely for the joy of expression, detached from whether the piece will sell or be critically acclaimed, experiences a freedom that a commercially driven artist may never know. A parent who focuses on offering love, guidance, and support, detached from whether the child will choose the right career or always show gratitude, builds a healthier, more resilient relationship. The action, the loving effort, is its own reward. This is how we engage without being consumed. We give our best to our work, our relationships, and our communities, but we do not make our inner peace contingent on a specific response. We become like a skilled sailor who focuses entirely on trimming the sails and steering the boat correctly, understanding that we cannot control the wind or the waves. Our satisfaction comes from navigating well, not from demanding a calm sea. The graceful power in this discipline is that it allows you to persist in the face of apparent failure. If your well-intentioned action leads to a negative result, you are not devastated. You can learn from the experience, adjust your approach, and try again, because your self-worth was never tied to the outcome in the first place. You remain in the arena, fighting the good fight, precisely because you are detached from the need for an immediate victory. This is the essence of virtuous action, a sustained, purposeful engagement with the world, fueled by an inner commitment to doing good, and characterized by a profound and graceful peace that comes from knowing you have controlled the one thing you truly can, your own choices. Now that we've explored the disciplines that guide our actions in the world, we turn to a tool that turns our focus inward to the quiet space of private reflection. This is the practice of Stoic journaling, specifically the evening review. While Marcus Aurelius is remembered as one of the most powerful men in history, his most enduring legacy wasn't a military victory or a grand building. It was a private diary, never intended for publication, which we now know as meditations. In those pages, night after night, he engaged in a profound conversation with himself. He examined his actions, questioned his motives, and reinforced his commitment to living virtuously. This wasn't an exercise in self-criticism. It was a systematic method for building self-awareness and processing the day's events with wisdom, rather than being carried away by their emotional residue. The evening review is a structured yet simple practice you can adopt each night before sleep. It involves asking yourself 3 key questions. First, ask yourself, what did I do well today? Where did I act in accordance with my principles? This is not about inflating your ego, but about acknowledging progress. It reinforces the behaviors you want to cultivate. Perhaps you remained patient in a frustrating situation where you normally would have snapped. Maybe you chose to act fairly when it would have been easier to cut a corner. Celebrating these small victories, even silently to yourself, solidifies them as habits. The second question is, where did I fail in my principles? Where did I act out of fear, pride, or anger? The goal here is honest, gentle observation, not harsh self-flagellation. We are not looking for reasons to feel guilty, but for opportunities to learn. Did you avoid a difficult conversation because you feared conflict? Did you spend money impulsively to soothe a bad mood? Identifying these missteps is like a navigator correcting their course. It's an essential part of the journey, not a sign that the journey has failed. The third and most forward-looking question is, how can I improve tomorrow? This transforms reflection from a passive review into an active plan for growth. Based on what you learned from your successes and stumbles, what one small thing can you do differently? If you noticed you were quick to judge a colleague today, your intention for tomorrow might be to listen more carefully before forming an opinion. If you succumb to anxiety, your plan might be to practice the view from above for 5 minutes when you feel worry rising. This final step closes the loop, ensuring that each day's experiences become raw material for the next day's growth. The power of this ritual lies in its consistency. It's not a grand once-in-a-while introspection, but a daily habit of checking your inner compass. This practice is a master key for graceful detachment because it creates a space between you and the turbulence of the day. Imagine coming home after a difficult day where you felt criticized, overwhelmed, or unappreciated. Without processing, those feelings can churn in your mind all night, robbing you of peace and leading to a reactive start the next morning. But by sitting down with your journal, you are taking all that chaotic energy and giving it a constructive outlet. You are no longer simply feeling the frustration, you are examining it. Why did that comment bother me so much? Is it because I am overly attached to being seen as competent? By asking these questions, you are detaching from the raw emotion and engaging with its underlying cause. You are transforming the day's events from something that happened to you into something you can learn from. This is how we build resilience. We are not suppressing our emotions, we are understanding them. We are not ignoring our mistakes, we are mining them for wisdom. Over time, this nightly review builds a profound self-awareness that allows you to catch yourself in the moment. You start to notice the impulse to complain before the words leave your mouth. You feel the rise of anger, and having journaled about its roots, you can choose a different response. The journal becomes a training ground where you rehearse virtue, analyze vice, and steadily align your actions with your deepest values. It is the ultimate practice of taking responsibility for your inner world, ensuring that each day ends not with confusion and angst, but with clarity, a clear conscience, and a peaceful mind ready for rest and renewal. Following the structured reflection of journaling, we now turn to a tool that brings our Stoic principles to life in the heat of the moment. This is the contemplation of the sage. Throughout history, in every culture, we find the archetype of the wise elder, the person of unshakable composure and profound insight. The Stoics formalized this concept into the figure of the sage, an idealized, perfectly rational and virtuous human being. Now you might think, no one is perfect, so what's the point of comparing myself to an impossible standard? The power of this exercise lies not in achieving perfection, but in having a clear direction. It's like a sailor using the North Star for navigation. The sailor doesn't expect to reach the star, but by keeping it in sight, they can consistently steer their ship in the right direction. The sage serves as your personal North Star for character. The practice is beautifully simple. When you find yourself in a challenging situation, a moment of rising anger, a difficult ethical choice, a wave of anxiety, you press the mental pause button and ask yourself one question: what would the ideal wise person do here? This immediately creates a critical distance between your initial impulsive reaction and your chosen response. You are no longer just you, feeling offended or scared. You are now an actor stepping into the role of wisdom itself. How would a person guided entirely by reason and virtue handle this? They wouldn't succumb to petty rage or selfish fear. They would assess the facts calmly, consider the common good, and choose an action that aligns with justice and courage. By embodying this role, even for a few seconds, you access a higher perspective that your own emotions might be clouding. Let's make this practical with a scenario. You're driving and another driver cuts you off in a dangerous way. Your raw, instinctual reaction might be a surge of adrenaline, leaning on the horn, shouting, or even a desire for retaliation. Now apply the contemplation of the sage. Ask the question, what would a truly wise person do? They would first prioritize safety, their own and that of others on the road. They would recognize that the other driver's action was likely born of haste, distraction, or poor judgment, not a personal vendetta. A sage would feel a passing moment of alertness, but would not fuel it into lasting anger. They might simply take a deep breath, create a safe distance, and continue on their journey, their inner peace completely undisturbed by the external chaos. By rehearsing this response in your mind, you give yourself a template for grace. Instead of being hijacked by impulse, you choose the wiser path. This tool is incredibly effective because it provides a concrete model rather than an abstract principle. It's one thing to tell yourself, be rational. It's another, more powerful thing to ask, how would Marcus Aurelius handle this criticism? Or, what would Seneca do if his plans fell apart? You are tapping into the collective wisdom of the ages. This doesn't mean suppressing your humanity. It means allowing your better angels to take the lead. Over time, this mental habit rewires your default responses. You start to internalize the sage qualities. The gap between your reaction and the ideal narrows. Situations that once would have ruined your hour now become mere exercises in practicing virtue. The grace you cultivate isn't for show. It's the natural outcome of consistently aspiring to a higher standard, guided by an imaginary mentor who represents the best version of yourself. After contemplating how an ideal sage might respond to life's challenges, we arrive at a tool that might seem paradoxical at first glance, but is perhaps one of the most practical and empowering of them all. This is the practice of voluntary discomfort. The idea is to intentionally and periodically invite small, manageable doses of hardship into your life. This could be as simple as taking a cold shower instead of a warm one, walking instead of driving for a short errand, fasting for a single meal, or choosing to wear a simpler, less comfortable outfit for a day. On the surface, this might sound like unnecessary self-punishment. Why would anyone living in an age of unprecedented comfort choose to be uncomfortable? The Stoic answer is both profound and practical. To build resilience, think of it as a form of psychological and emotional vaccination. Just as a vaccine introduces a tiny, weakened version of a virus to train your immune system to handle the real thing, voluntary discomfort inoculates your mind against the shocks of misfortune. By willingly stepping into minor hardship, you are sending a powerful message to your deepest self. I am tougher than my circumstances. My well-being does not depend on perfect comfort. This practice systematically dismantles the fear that so often controls our lives, the fear of loss, the fear of inconvenience, the fear of discomfort. When the power goes out in a storm, the person who has never experienced a cold shower will panic and feel utterly deprived. But the person who voluntarily endures cold showers will simply light a candle, put on a sweater, and accept the situation with calm equanimity. They have already proven to themselves that they can handle much worse. The Roman philosopher Seneca, a man of immense wealth, was a strong advocate for this practice. He would periodically set aside time to live on a diet of cheap bread and sleep on a hard bed. He did this not because he had to, but precisely because he didn't have to. He explained that by doing so, he was testing his ability to endure poverty, ensuring that if fate ever stripped him of his riches, it would not also strip him of his peace of mind. He wrote, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?' This is the core of the exercise." It's a direct confrontation with our own anxieties. we discover that the monster we feared in the shadows is in the clear light of day, far smaller and more manageable than we imagined. The grace cultivated here comes from a newfound sense of self-reliance. Your happiness becomes less contingent on external conditions. You are no longer a fragile vase that must be kept in a climate-controlled room. You become a sturdy piece of pottery that can withstand the elements. This detachment from comfort is not about developing a disdain for the good things in life. It's about removing their power to hold you hostage. You can still enjoy a warm shower, a delicious meal, and a soft bed, but you enjoy them as a free person, not as an addict who dreads their absence. You appreciate the luxury without needing it. This is a subtle but life-changing distinction. It allows you to move through the world with a quiet confidence, knowing that you have a hidden reserve of strength to draw upon when life inevitably becomes difficult. You have, in a sense, trained for adversity in the safety of your own home, so that when real adversity arrives, you are not meeting it for the first time. You are simply recognizing an old, familiar challenge, and you already know you have the strength to face it. This brings us to a tool that, on its surface, may seem the most unsettling, yet when understood correctly, becomes one of the most liberating practices of all. Memento mori, the Latin phrase for remember you must die. At first, this might sound dark, even morbid, a constant fixation on the end of life. But the Stoic practice is anything but a morbid obsession. It is a profound and sobering meditation designed to breathe intense vitality and clarity into the life you are living right now. The core insight is simple. Recognizing the absolute certainty and unpredictability of our own death is the ultimate tool for prioritizing what truly matters. It acts as a filter, instantly separating the significant from the superficial. Imagine for a moment that you received a definite, unchangeable diagnosis. You have 1 month left to live. How would your perspective shift? The minor irritations, the long line at the coffee shop, the negative comment online, the trivial argument with a neighbor would instantly lose their power to upset you. They would be revealed for what they are, background noise, utterly insignificant in the face of your limited time. Simultaneously, what would rise to the surface? The people you love, the projects that genuinely express your values, the simple, often overlooked beauties of a sunrise, a conversation, a good meal. Memento mori is the practice of holding that 1 month perspective every single day, not with dread, but with a sense of profound urgency and gratitude. It's not about counting down the days in fear, it's about making the days count. The Roman Stoics integrated this reflection into their daily routines. It's said that victorious generals parading through the streets of Rome in triumphal processions would have a slave standing behind them in their chariot, whose sole job was to whisper in their ear, "Respice post te." Hominum te memento, which translates to "look behind you, remember you are but a man." This was a powerful check on ego, a reminder that today's glory is fleeting and that death comes for everyone from the slave to the emperor. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This is the engine of memento mori. It creates an immediate and powerful incentive to stop procrastinating on your values. Why hold a grudge when you could reconcile? Why waste an evening in mindless scrolling when you could connect with a loved one? Why remain in a job that crushes your spirit when your time is so precious and finite? This practice delivers a powerful blow to our vanity and our endless pursuit of symbolic immortality through fame, wealth, or status. We secretly hope that if we build a big enough company, write a famous enough book, or accumulate enough possessions, a part of us will live on, softening the sting of our mortality. Memento mori shatters this illusion. It reminds us that all of it, the money, the accolades, the possessions, will be left behind. They are temporary tools, not the point of the journey. This realization is not depressing, it is incredibly freeing. It detaches you from the exhausting need to impress others, to build a legacy for its own sake, to keep up with the Joneses. When you deeply accept that you and everyone you know will one day be gone, the need for external validation begins to evaporate. You are liberated to live a life based on your own internal compass, guided by what you find meaningful, not by what society deems impressive. To integrate this into your life, you don't need to dwell on death constantly. It can be a brief morning meditation. As you sip your coffee, simply remind yourself, I am mortal. This day is a gift. This isn't meant to spawn anxiety, but to spark intention. It will influence the choices you make throughout the day, helping you respond to a provocation with patience because you know conflict wastes precious time, or motivating you to finally start that project you've been putting off for years. The grace that Memento Mori fosters is the grace of a life lived without regret. It's the ability to meet each moment with full presence because you are acutely aware that it is not a rehearsal. It is the main performance and it will end. This awareness infuses even the most ordinary moments with a kind of sacred light, allowing you to detach from the trivial and attach yourself fully to the profound, beautiful, and fleeting experience of being alive. After contemplating our own impermanence, we naturally begin to see our life as a small but vital part of a much larger story. This brings us to a concept that expands our sense of self to encompass the entire universe, sympatheia, the Stoic principle of universal interconnectedness. This idea suggests that the cosmos is not a chaotic collection of separate beings and random events, but a single, living, rational organism, a vast and intricate web where every part is intimately connected to the whole. We are not isolated islands of consciousness drifting in a void. We are individual threads woven into a magnificent cosmic tapestry. Recognizing this profound connection fundamentally changes how we relate to others, to obstacles, and to our own place in the grand scheme of things. The immediate and most beautiful effect of embracing sympatheia is a natural and effortless expansion of empathy. When you truly see another person not as a stranger or a competitor, but as a fellow part of the same whole, your perspective softens. Their joys become, in a sense, your joys, their sufferings, your sufferings. This isn't a forced sentimentality. It's a logical extension of seeing reality as it is. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of this. He would write notes to himself like, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee," and "We are made for cooperation, like feet, like hands, like eyelids." He was guiding the entire Roman Empire, a vast and diverse collection of people, by grounding his actions in this understanding. He saw that the health of the empire depended on the well-being of all its parts, just as the health of a body depends on the health of its limbs. This view dissolves the illusion of separation that fuels selfishness, prejudice, and conflict. Why would your right hand fight your left? They are part of the same body, serving the same purpose. This sense of belonging also directly counters the modern epidemic of loneliness and isolation. When you feel disconnected and adrift, it's often because you perceive yourself as a solitary actor on a vast, indifferent stage. Sympatheia offers a powerful antidote. It reassures you that you are an integral part of a meaningful whole. Your actions, however small, ripple outward and contribute to the state of the universe. The food you eat connects you to the farmers, the truckers, and the earth itself. The language you speak connects you to centuries of human history and culture. This awareness can transform mundane activities into acts of cosmic participation. Even in moments of solitude, you are never truly alone. You are in a constant, dynamic relationship with the entire cosmos. This realization fosters a deep and abiding sense of belonging that is immune to external social validation. Now, apply this perspective to the inevitable setbacks and frustrations of life. When viewed through the lens of sympatheia, a personal misfortune is no longer just a random, malicious strike against you. It is an event within the larger, interconnected system. Perhaps a project falling apart creates space for a new collaboration you couldn't have foreseen. Maybe a personal failure teaches you a lesson that you later use to help someone else facing a similar challenge. The Stoics believed the universe was governed by a rational principle which they called the logos. From this viewpoint, even events that seem negative from our limited, personal perspective may serve a beneficial purpose in the grand, interconnected order that we cannot fully comprehend. This is not about passive resignation, it's about trusting the process. It's the difference between angrily shouting at a single puzzle piece for not fitting and understanding that its unique shape is necessary for the complete picture to emerge. Consider a practical example. You are working on a team project and a colleague's stubbornness causes a significant delay. The isolated, ego-driven reaction is frustration and anger directed at that individual. But applying sympathy, you zoom out. You see this colleague as a part of your shared hive, perhaps acting out of their own fears or limitations. The delay itself is now an event within the larger system of your team's project. Instead of attacking the person, you seek to understand the root cause of the obstruction. This shift transforms the dynamic from a conflict to a collaborative problem-solving session. You work with the interconnected reality of the situation, not against one isolated part of it. The obstacle becomes an opportunity to strengthen the bonds and understanding within the team, ultimately leading to a more resilient outcome. The grace that sympathy cultivates is the grace of a wide-angle lens on life. It allows you to hold your personal struggles more lightly because you see them in context. A traffic jam is not just your personal inconvenience, it is a temporary pattern in the flow of an entire city. A professional rejection is not a verdict on your worth, it is a redirection within the complex network of opportunities and needs. This expansive view naturally diminishes pride and self-importance while simultaneously elevating your sense of responsibility. You feel a duty to act as a good citizen of the universe because what you do affects the whole. By detaching from the narrow focus on me and mine, you attach to the well-being of the entire cosmos. This is the ultimate graceful detachment, finding your peace not in getting your own way, but in playing your part harmoniously within the beautiful, rational, and interconnected whole of which you are a born member. Now, let's turn our attention from the vast, cosmic view of sympathy back to the very practical level of our daily plans and ambitions. This brings us to a disarmingly simple yet profoundly effective mental habit known as the reserve clause. At its core, this is the practice of adding a silent, internal caveat to every intention and plan we make. We say to ourselves, "I will do this, fate permitting." Or, as the Stoics often phrased it in Latin, Deo volunt, God willing. This isn't a superstitious incantation. It's a deliberate psychological technique designed to build acceptance of life's unpredictability directly into our goal-setting process from the very beginning. The power of the reserve clause lies in its ability to reconcile two seemingly contradictory states, wholehearted effort and serene detachment. Normally, when we set a goal, like finishing a major project by Friday or planning a perfect weekend getaway, we become emotionally invested in that specific outcome. We attach our expectation of happiness to everything going exactly according to plan. Then, when an external event intervenes, a key team member gets sick, a flight gets cancelled, our entire emotional world is thrown into turmoil. We feel frustrated, angry, and cheated. The reserve clause prevents this emotional hijacking by reframing our commitment. We are not committing to the outcome, we are committing to our part of the process. We pledge to do everything within our power to achieve the goal, while simultaneously acknowledging that the final result is not entirely in our hands. Think of it as the difference between a rigid piece of wood and a flexible willow branch. The rigid wood, when faced with a strong wind, will strain and eventually snap. The willow branch, however, bends with the wind. It may not end up exactly where it started, but it remains unbroken. The reserve clause makes our mind like the willow branch. We are flexible in our expectations while remaining strong in our efforts. For example, you might set the intention, I will work diligently to prepare for and deliver an excellent presentation to my clients on Monday, fate permitting. This internal statement does two things simultaneously. It energizes you to give your absolute best in your preparation, which is within your control. And it gently prepares you for the possibility that the clients might reschedule, the technology might fail, or any number of other unpredictable events might occur which are outside your control. This practice is a direct application of the dichotomy of control we discussed earlier, but it applies it proactively at the moment of planning rather than reactively after a plan has been disrupted. It's a form of preemptive acceptance. By acknowledging the role of fate from the outset, we are not inviting failure. We are simply being realistic about the nature of a world filled with countless independent variables. The Roman statesman and Stoic Seneca was a master of this. He wrote extensively about how we should undertake all our projects with a reserve, stating that the wise person considers both the uncertain nature of the future and the ferocity of fortune's assaults, and does not invest all his hopes in one single plan. He understood that to do otherwise was to build a house on a foundation of sand, vulnerable to the first storm. To integrate this into your life, start with your small daily plans. As you write your to-do list for the day, mentally append the reserve clause to each item. I intend to run my errands this afternoon, fate permitting. I plan to have a productive work session, fate permitting. This isn't about becoming passive or pessimistic. It's about cultivating a realistic and resilient mindset. When an unexpected phone call disrupts your work session, instead of reacting with frustration that your plan was ruined, you can recall your internal caveat. You think fate did not permit that particular plan today, and so you adapt. You adjust your schedule without the accompanying inner storm. Your commitment was to your effort, not to the clock. This subtle shift preserves your peace and allows you to redirect your energy effectively rather than wasting it on resistance. The grace that the reserve clause cultivates is the grace of a seasoned sailor. The sailor sets a course with skill and determination, but they know the winds and currents are beyond their command. They are fully committed to steering the ship well, but they do not rage against an unfavorable wind. They simply adjust the sails. This mindset allows you to engage in life with ambition and vigor, yet you are never truly defeated by circumstances. Your sense of accomplishment comes from the quality of your striving, from knowing you did your part with excellence. The ultimate outcome is received with equanimity. If it succeeds, you are grateful. If it fails, you are philosophical. You have already succeeded by acting with virtue and intention, and that is an achievement that no external event can ever take away from you. Having established the importance of how we interpret events, we now turn our focus to the very source of those interpretations, the constant stream of thoughts flowing through our minds. This brings us to a remarkably effective tool for modern anxiety, cognitive distancing. Think of your mind not as who you are, but as a kind of internal radio that is always broadcasting. Sometimes it plays calming music or useful information, but often it gets stuck on a station that broadcasts worries, criticisms, and catastrophic predictions. The problem isn't the content of the broadcast itself. It's that we tend to sit there, listening intently, believing every word as if it were absolute truth. We fuse with our thoughts, treating a mental event like "I am a failure" as a concrete fact about reality, rather than what it truly is, a passing string of words generated by the mind. Cognitive distancing is the practice of changing your relationship with that radio. Instead of being a captive listener fused to the broadcast, you learn to become the aware observer of the radio itself. You create a small but crucial space between the thought and the thinker. The simplest way to do this is through a subtle shift in language. When a distressing thought arises, such as "this project is going to be a disaster," you consciously reframe it by adding a prefix. "I am having the thought that this project is going to be a disaster." This might seem like a minor linguistic trick, but its psychological impact is profound. That small phrase, "I am having the thought that," acts as a lever of detachment. It moves the thought from being a statement of fact to being an object of observation. You are no longer the thought itself, you are the one noticing the thought. This meta-awareness, this ability to witness your own mental process, is a superpower for emotional regulation. Let's explore a practical scenario where this tool can be a lifesaver. Imagine you're about to speak up in an important meeting, and a sudden, intrusive thought flashes through your mind. What if I say something stupid and everyone realizes I'm not qualified for this job? If you fuse with that thought, if you accept it as truth, your body will respond with a surge of anxiety. Your heart might race, your palms may sweat, and you might ultimately decide to stay silent to avoid the perceived risk. Now apply cognitive distancing. You notice the thought and silently label it. I am having the thought that I will sound stupid. This immediately creates a buffer. You can look at the thought almost as if it were a cloud floating across the sky of your mind. You can acknowledge its presence without having to board the cloud and be carried away by it. From this place of slight distance, you can choose a more helpful response. You might remind yourself of your preparation, or you might simply decide to speak anyway, acknowledging the fear without letting it dictate your actions. This practice is rooted in the Stoic understanding that our initial impressions are just that, impressions. They are not necessarily reality. Epictetus taught that when an impression strikes us, we should not immediately assent to it. We should pause and say, "Wait, you are only an impression and not necessarily the thing you claim to be." Cognitive distancing is the modern, practical application of this ancient advice. It allows you to hit the pause button on your reactive mind. Instead of being a slave to every passing mental weather pattern, you become the calm observer of the sky. A storm of anxious thoughts may roll in, but you are the one watching the storm from a sheltered porch rather than being caught out in the rain. This doesn't mean the storm isn't happening. It means you are no longer defined by it. The grace that this tool cultivates is the grace of choice. When you are fused with your thoughts, you have no choice, you react automatically. A critical thought about a partner leads to a snappy remark. A fearful thought about the future leads to procrastination, but with distance you create a moment of freedom. In that space you can ask yourself, is this thought helpful? Is it true? What would happen if I didn't believe this right now? This is not about suppressing thoughts or trying to force positive thinking. It is about changing your relationship with all of your thoughts, giving you the flexibility to engage with the useful ones and let the unhelpful ones pass by like leaves on a stream. With consistent practice, you develop a lighter touch with your own inner world. You learn to hold your thoughts more gently, which in turn allows you to move through the external world with greater resilience, patience, and a profound sense of inner peace that is no longer at the mercy of a random mental broadcast. This next tool brings us to a deeply practical skill, one that often feels counterintuitive but holds the key to ending a great deal of our self-created suffering. It's the art of acquiescence. At its heart, this is the practice of yielding to reality itself. Now, it is crucial to understand that this is not the same as passive resignation or helpless defeat. Resignation is a state of giving up, a slumped shoulders sigh of, "Well, there's nothing I can do." Acquiescence, in the Stoic sense, is something far more active and intelligent. It is a clear-eyed, deliberate decision to stop arguing with the facts of the present moment. It is the inner shift from shouting, "This shouldn't be happening," to calmly acknowledging, "This is happening." The fundamental insight here is that a significant portion of our pain doesn't come from the event itself, but from the internal resistance we mount against it. Think of it like trying to swim against a powerful current. You exhaust yourself, you make no progress, and you drown in frustration. The art of acquiescence is the decision to stop fighting the current, to turn onto your back and to float. In doing so, you conserve all your energy. You are still in the same river, facing the same challenge, but now you are in a position to observe your surroundings, to think clearly, and to look for a safe place to swim to shore. The struggle isn't gone, but your futile war with the water is over. Consider a simple, everyday example. You are driving to an extremely important appointment, and you encounter a massive, unexpected traffic jam that has completely gridlocked the highway. The unexamined, resistant reaction is one of pure frustration. Your mind starts to rebel against reality. This is terrible, this can't be happening. It's not fair, I'm going to be late and it's going to ruin everything. Notice how much energy is expended in this mental battle against the unmoving line of cars. Your heart rate increases, your grip tightens on the steering wheel, and you become consumed by anger and anxiety. You are at war with the traffic jam, and you are guaranteed to lose. Now apply the art of acquiescence. You take a deep breath and you consciously accept the fact, I am in a traffic jam, I will be late. This statement contains no judgment, no emotional charge. It is a simple acknowledgement of what is true. The moment you do this, something remarkable happens. The internal struggle ceases. The energy you were wasting on resistance is suddenly freed up. Now you can use that energy productively. You can call ahead to inform them you'll be delayed. You can use the time to listen to an audiobook or a podcast, or you can simply sit in silence and use it as an unexpected moment of pause. The situation hasn't changed, you are still stuck, but your experience of it has been transformed from a nightmare of frustration into a manageable, if inconvenient, circumstance. You have met reality with grace instead of a struggle. This art is particularly powerful when facing larger, more painful life events: a serious illness, the loss of a job, the end of a relationship. The initial shock and pain are natural and real. Acquiescence does not mean you should not feel grief or disappointment. It means that after allowing those initial feelings, you make the conscious choice to stop fighting the existence of the new reality. To stop insisting, this shouldn't have happened to me. The Stoics would argue that whatever has happened, by the very fact that it has happened, was within the realm of possibility. It is now a part of the tapestry of your life. To fight against it is to fight against the entire universe, a battle you cannot win. Acquiescence is the courageous act of lowering your sword and saying, "This is my new reality. I will not spend another ounce of my spirit denying it. Instead, I will use all my strength to navigate within it." This is where the grace blossoms. When you stop exhausting yourself by resisting what is, you discover a reservoir of strength you didn't know you had. Your energy is redirected from the impossible task of changing the past to the possible task of building a meaningful future within your new constraints. A person who acquiesces to a diagnosis can then channel all their energy into treatment and adapting their lifestyle, rather than being paralyzed by anger and denial. A person who acquiesces to a financial loss can focus on rebuilding with clarity, rather than being trapped in cycles of regret and blame. This is not passivity, it is the ultimate pragmatism. It is the foundation for all effective action, because you can only build upon the ground you are actually standing on, not the ground you wish you were on. The art of acquiescence is how you finally and gracefully plant your feet on the solid earth of truth, ready to move forward from there. Building on the practice of accepting reality as it is, we come to a tool that anchors that acceptance in the most immediate reality of all, the present moment. This is the practice of focusing exclusively on the present task. The Stoics observed with remarkable clarity that our minds are rarely where our bodies are. We are often time travelers, dwelling in the regrets and replays of the past, or anxiously projecting ourselves into the uncertainties of the future. In doing so, we abandon the only time and place where we actually have any agency, the here and now. The Roman philosopher Seneca put it bluntly when he wrote, "The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today." The whole future lies in uncertainty. Live immediately. This directive is not about dismissing planning or reflection. It is about recognizing that planning for the future is a present moment activity, and learning from the past is a present moment reflection. The problem arises when we leave the present entirely, allowing our minds to be hijacked by what-if scenarios that may never happen, or, if only, thoughts about events we can no longer change. Anxiety is fundamentally a future-oriented emotion. It's the fear of a negative event that exists only in our imagination. Regret is its past-oriented counterpart, a persistent sadness over a moment that has already slipped through our fingers. Both are illusions that rob us of our power because we cannot act in the future or the past. We can only ever act now. True peace and the capacity for virtuous action exist solely in the present moment. This is where life is actually happening. The graceful detachment cultivated here comes from consciously withdrawing your attention from the phantom realms of past and future and placing it firmly on the single task directly in front of you. When you are fully immersed in the present, the mental chatter about what's next or what's been naturally subsides. You are no longer attached to the stories your mind is spinning. You are attached to the tangible reality of your current activity. Think of a master craftsman absorbed in their work. Their entire being is focused on the stroke of the brush, the cut of the chisel. They are not worried about the critic's review that will come next week or regretting a minute imperfection from an hour ago. Their detachment from outcome and past error is what allows for the flawless execution of the current action. This intense focus is a form of flow, and it is in this state that we experience both peak performance and profound peace. To make this practical, you can develop simple anchors to bring your awareness back to the now. One powerful method is to engage your senses deliberately. If you find yourself spiraling into anxiety about an upcoming meeting, pause and focus intently on the physical sensations of the present. Feel the weight of your body in the chair, the temperature of the air on your skin, the sensation of your feet flat on the floor. Listen to the most subtle sounds in your environment. This sensory anchor pulls you out of the abstract world of thought and into the concrete reality of your immediate experience. Another technique is to break down overwhelming projects into the absolute smallest next step. Instead of being paralyzed by the enormity of completing the report, your present moment task becomes writing the first sentence of the introduction. This narrow focus makes action manageable and quietens the intimidating noise of the larger future goal. Marcus Aurelius offered himself this advice constantly in his meditations, urging himself to confine yourself to the present. He would remind himself that the past is gone and the future is unknowable, so the only logical place to invest his energy was in dealing justly with the matter at hand. This mindset is incredibly liberating when facing a daunting challenge. You don't have to solve your entire life today. You only have to handle this conversation, this email, this single hour with integrity and attention. By detaching from the overwhelming narrative of your life and attaching to the specific, manageable action of this moment, you build a life of quality from the ground up, one present moment task at a time. The grace found here is the quiet confidence of someone who is fully engaged with what is real, right now, trusting that by taking care of each moment as it comes, the future will take care of itself. In a world that seems to celebrate constant noise, the endless podcasts, the buzzing group chats, the pressure to have a hot take on every issue, we arrive at a tool that serves as a powerful antidote, the practice of silence. This is not merely about turning off external sounds. It is a disciplined cultivation of quiet, both in our environment and, more importantly, within the chatter of our own mind. The Stoics understood that wisdom is not born from endless talking, but from deep listening and careful observation. Intentional silence is the fertile ground in which clarity can grow, allowing us to step out of the reactive stream of stimuli and into a space of thoughtful response. The primary value of this practice lies in its ability to create a crucial gap. Between an event and our reaction, there is typically a hair-trigger connection. Someone says something we disagree with, and we instantly fire back a retort. A problem arises at work, and we immediately voice our anxiety or jump to a solution without fully understanding the issue. Silence is the practice of inserting a conscious pause into that automatic chain. It is the deliberate decision to not speak, to not formulate an immediate opinion, to simply be present and observe. In that spacious quiet, a remarkable shift occurs. The initial, often emotional, impulse loses its urgent grip. You are no longer a puppet whose strings are pulled by every external provocation. You become the puppeteer with the power to choose which string to pull and when. Consider a heated discussion where emotions are running high. The unexamined approach is to fight fire with fire, raising your voice to match the intensity, becoming more entrenched in your position with every word. Now apply the practice of silence. Instead of engaging in the battle of decibels, you choose to stop talking. You listen, truly listen, to what the other person is saying, not just to prepare your counter-argument, but to understand the feeling and perspective behind their words. This external silence often has a disarming effect, calming the entire dynamic, but the real magic happens internally. In your own quiet mind, you can process the information without the distorting lens of ego and emotion. You can ask yourself Stoic questions. Is this within my control? What is the virtuous response here? Is my desire to win this argument overshadowing my desire for a just outcome? From this place of quiet reflection, your eventual response will be measured, considered, and far more likely to be constructive. You respond with grace because you detached from the need to have the last word. This practice extends far beyond difficult conversations. It applies to our relationship with the digital world. The constant barrage of notifications and information creates a kind of internal noise that leaves us feeling frazzled and scattered. Setting aside periods of the day for a digital silence, turning off screens, putting your phone in another room is a modern form of this Stoic discipline. In the absence of that external demand for your attention, your mind naturally begins to settle. The frantic pace of thought slows down. You create room for deeper reflection, for the insights that can only surface when the water of the mind is still. This is when you might suddenly see the solution to a problem that hours of frantic thinking could not solve. It is in silence that we hear the whispers of our own intuition and conscience, a guidance system that is often drowned out by the world's cacophony. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who was constantly surrounded by advisors, petitioners, and the noise of imperial court, deeply valued his moments of inner retreat. He wrote about retiring into the little territory of his own mind to find immediate tranquility. This is the ultimate goal of the practice of silence, to build an inner sanctuary of quiet that you can access at any time, even in the middle of a crowded room or a stressful situation. It is the graceful art of detachment from the compulsive need to always be doing, saying, or reacting. By regularly practicing both external and internal silence, you train yourself to find your center not in the chaos of the world, but in the profound peace that exists just beneath it. You learn that your power does not come from the volume of your voice, but from the depth of your understanding, which is almost always found in the quiet spaces between the sounds. Building on the practice of cultivating inner silence, we now turn to a tool that actively fills that quiet space with enduring wisdom. This is the vital habit of reading philosophy, specifically the foundational texts of Stoicism. Just as a musician practices scales daily to keep their skills sharp, or an athlete follows a consistent training regimen to maintain peak condition, the Stoic mind requires regular exercise to remain strong and resilient. The principles we've discussed are not one-time insights to be grasped and forgotten. They are mental muscles that must be continually strengthened. There is no better way to do this than by returning to the source, by spending time in the direct company of the ancient masters themselves, Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius. Think of these texts not as dusty old books, but as personal training manuals for the soul. The Enchiridion by Epictetus is a concise, powerful handbook. Its very name means manual or thing held in the hand, and it is designed for immediate, practical application. It distills complex ideas into clear, actionable maxims that you can carry with you throughout your day. Then there are Seneca's Letters from a Stoic, which read as if a wise, compassionate uncle is writing to you personally. He addresses the anxieties and challenges of daily life, dealing with anger, coping with grief, handling wealth, facing poverty, with a conversational warmth that makes profound wisdom feel accessible and deeply human. Finally, we have Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, which is unique in all of literature. This was never intended for publication. It is the private journal of the most powerful man in the world, writing notes to himself to stay grounded, just, and humble amid the immense pressures of leading an empire. Reading it feels like looking over the shoulder of an emperor as he coaches his own soul. The immense value of regular reading lies in reinforcement and renewal. Our modern environment constantly bombards us with messages that pull us away from a Stoic mindset. Consumerism tells us happiness is found in external acquisition. Social media fuels comparison and the hunger for validation. The 24-hour news cycle amplifies fear and outrage. Immersing yourself in Stoic texts for even a few minutes each day acts as a powerful counter-programming. It's a daily realignment, a recalibration of your inner compass toward virtue and tranquility. A principle that felt abstract yesterday might suddenly click into place today when you read it in the context of a new challenge you're facing. The words of Seneca on overcoming anxiety can transform from a historical idea into a direct personal counsel when you're laying awake at night with your own worries. This is how reading keeps the tools sharp. It's not about learning something new each time, but about being reminded of what you already know but have temporarily forgotten in the noise of life. To integrate this practice, you don't need to embark on an academic study. The goal is consistent, thoughtful engagement, not speed. You might commit to reading just one page or one letter from Seneca each morning with your coffee. The key is to read not for information but for transformation. After reading a passage, pause and reflect. How does this apply to a situation you are currently facing? Could you see a recent frustration through the lens of the dichotomy of control after reading Epictetus? Could you approach a difficult conversation with more grace after reflecting on Marcus Aurelius' advice on dealing with troublesome people? This turns reading from a passive activity into an active dialogue with the text, where you are constantly translating ancient wisdom into modern practice. This habit serves as the ultimate safeguard against the gradual erosion of your resolve. It's easy to start a journey with enthusiasm, but over time, without reinforcement, our initial commitment can fade. Regular contact with these philosophers is like having a wise council of advisors on call at all times. They provide fresh perspectives, reminding you that your struggles are not new, that human nature has remained constant for millennia, and that the path to a good life has been clearly mapped out by those who walked it before you. The grace that this tool cultivates is the confidence of someone who is continually nourishing their understanding. It ensures that the principles of detachment, resilience, and virtue are not just concepts you learned in a video, but living ideas that you revisit, re-examine, and recommit to every single day, keeping them readily available to guide your actions with wisdom and peace. And so we arrive at a tool that encapsulates the very essence of everything we've explored so far, a simple phrase that carries the weight of millennia of human experience, the meditation on the truth that this too shall pass. This is more than just a comforting cliché. It is a profound mental exercise in applying the principle of impermanence directly to the raw, immediate sensations of our lives. When you are in the depths of worry, gripped by a sharp pain, or even soaring on a wave of exhilarating success, this practice invites you to press pause and consciously acknowledge the temporary nature of it all. It is a direct and gentle assault on the root of attachment, the stubborn, subconscious belief that our current state, whether pleasant or painful, is a permanent residence. The power of this meditation lies in its balanced application. It is just as valuable in moments of joy as it is in moments of sorrow. When you are ecstatically happy, perhaps you've just achieved a long-sought goal or are immersed in a period of deep connection. There is often a subtle, underlying anxiety. A voice in the back of your mind whispers, "How long can this last?" This fear of losing the good can actually prevent us from fully inhabiting and enjoying the good itself. The "this too shall pass" meditation applied here is not meant to dampen your joy but to liberate it. By consciously reminding yourself, this beautiful moment is transient, you are freed from the clutch of clinging. You can love the experience more deeply precisely because you know it is fleeting. You savor the coffee, the laughter, the sunset with a heightened intensity because you are aware it is a gift, not a possession. This acknowledgement allows joy to be felt fully without the desperate, clinging energy that so often tarnishes it. Now, consider its application in the midst of genuine difficulty. When you are facing a searing emotional pain, a period of intense stress, or a seemingly insurmountable obstacle, the feeling is one of being trapped. It feels like the walls are closing in, and this new, painful reality is all there is and all there ever will be. This is when the meditation becomes an anchor. You close your eyes, take a deep breath, and silently speak the words to yourself, "This too shall pass." You are not denying the pain or its significance. You are simply placing it within the truthful, larger context of constant change. You bring to mind evidence from your own life, a past heartbreak that you once thought would never heal, a previous failure that you eventually moved beyond, a fear that once consumed you but now barely registers. By recalling that you have survived every single one of your worst days up to this point, you build evidence for the fact that you will survive this one too. The Stoics grounded this practice in their observation of nature's endless cycles. Marcus Aurelius constantly reflected on the transience of all things, writing, "Remember that all is opinion and that the universe is nothing but change." He would look at the ruins of great palaces and the forgotten names of famous men to remind himself that even the most monumental things crumble into dust. This perspective is not nihilistic, it is humbling and equalizing. It reminds us that our personal drama, however intense, is a single, small wave in a vast, ever-changing ocean. The wave rises, it peaks, and it inevitably subsides back into the sea. The meditation is the practice of feeling yourself as the entire ocean, capable of holding the wave rather than identifying solely as the wave itself, about to crash against the shore. To integrate this into your daily life, make it a reflexive habit. The next time you feel a surge of anger in a traffic jam, instead of feeding the emotion, simply state inwardly, "This frustration will pass." When you receive disappointing news after allowing the initial feeling to wash over you, remind yourself, "The sting of this disappointment will pass." This does not magically erase the feeling, but it prevents the feeling from erasing you. It creates a small space of observation between you and the emotion, allowing you to respond from a place of perspective rather than react from a place of being overwhelmed. The grace that this tool fosters is the grace of a seasoned traveler who knows that the current stretch of rough road is not the entire journey. It allows you to hold your experiences, both bitter and sweet, with a lighter, more open hand, appreciating them for what they are: precious, fleeting moments in the beautiful, unfolding story of a life. And as we learn to hold our experiences with the understanding that they are transient, we cultivate a mindset that is perfectly poised to engage with our next tool, one that actively seeks the hidden gift within every challenge. This is the practice of finding the opportunity in the obstacle, a powerful reframing technique that lies at the very heart of Stoic resilience. The Stoics proposed a radical idea. An obstacle is not merely something to be endured or overcome. It is the very raw material we need to build our character. Within every barrier, every setback, and every difficulty lies a specific, tailor-made opportunity to practice a virtue that we might otherwise neglect. The obstacle itself becomes the training ground, and the problem becomes the professor. This concept is perfectly captured in a famous maxim often attributed to the philosopher Marcus Aurelius: the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Let that idea sink in for a moment. What stands in the way becomes the way. This is not a motivational platitude. It's a fundamental re-engineering of perception. A wall in front of you is no longer a signal to stop. It is an invitation to practice perseverance, to find a door, to build a ladder, or to tunnel underneath. A person who is difficult to deal with is not an interruption to your peace. They are your personal trainer for patience and understanding. A financial loss is not just a disaster. It is a masterclass in temperance and a chance to rediscover what truly holds value in your life. The obstacle is not blocking the path. It is an essential part of the path itself, designed to strengthen you for the journey ahead. To make this practical, the Stoics encourage a simple but transformative question to ask yourself whenever you face a significant difficulty. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" which leads to a victim mentality, you train yourself to ask, "What virtue does this situation invite me to practice?" This single question acts as a lever, shifting your entire orientation from passive sufferer to active participant in your own growth. Imagine you are working on a critical team project and a key member suddenly quits, leaving a massive gap in expertise and manpower. The conventional reaction might be panic, frustration, and blaming the person who left. But applying this tool, you would pause and inquire, what is the opportunity here? This situation is inviting me to practice resourcefulness. It is challenging me to practice calm leadership under pressure. It is offering me a chance to practice delegation and trust in other team members I might have overlooked. The problem hasn't changed, but your relationship to it has been completely transformed. You are no longer fighting an enemy. You are engaging with a demanding but beneficial teacher. This reframing directly attacks the roots of anxiety and frustration. We experience negative emotions when reality does not match our expectations. We expected a smooth project and we got a chaotic one. The suffering comes from the gap between our desire and the actual event. Finding the opportunity in the obstacle is the process of consciously adjusting our expectations to align with reality. You accept that obstacles are not anomalies in life. They are the default setting. They are the necessary friction that allows us to move forward, just as a foot needs resistance from the ground to walk. Without obstacles, our virtues would remain theoretical, like a sword that has never been tested in battle. Courage cannot exist without danger. Patience cannot be cultivated without delay. Forgiveness is meaningless without a transgression to forgive. Therefore, every obstacle is a specific call to embody a particular strength. Consider a more personal example. You face a significant health scare, a diagnosis that requires a long and difficult treatment. This is a profound obstacle, one that rightly triggers fear and uncertainty. Yet, even here, this Stoic tool can provide a framework for grace. The situation is brutally inviting you to practice courage in the face of fear. It is demanding immense patience through weeks or months of recovery. It is offering a stark lesson in appreciating the present moment, a crash course in gratitude for the simple fact of being alive. It might even open the door to deeper connection with loved ones who rally to your support. By seeking the opportunity, you are not pretending the obstacle is pleasant. You are affirming that you have the capacity to mine it for meaning and strength. This is how we build a life that is not defined by what happens to us, but by how we choose to respond. We stop seeing problems as threats to our happiness and start seeing them as the very curriculum for becoming more graceful, resilient, and fully human. This brings us to a tool that is deceptively simple in description but monumental in its impact: a practice that serves as the practical hinge between all the Stoic principles we've discussed and the actual moments of our lives. This is the pause before reacting. We've explored how our judgments color events, how our desires can be misguided, and how our attachment to outcomes causes turmoil. But all of that wisdom remains theoretical unless we can activate it in the split second when an impression strikes, when someone says a cutting remark, when a plan falls apart, when fear suddenly grips us. The pause is the gateway. It is the sacred, deliberate space we create between the trigger and our response, and in that tiny sliver of time, our entire character is forged. Imagine your mind as a vast, echoing hall. An event occurs, a critical email arrives, a driver cuts you off, and it creates a sound, an impression that echoes through the hall. Most of us, operating on autopilot, immediately shout back a reactive echo. We fire off a defensive reply, we lean on the horn, we snap at a loved one. Our reaction is just noise responding to noise, an unconscious reflex. The practice of the pause is the decision to stand in that hall and simply listen to the echo fade into silence. In that quiet, you are no longer an echo. You become the architect of the hall, with the power to choose what sound you will make next, if any at all. This is the moment where you transition from being a reactor, a puppet pulled by external strings, to being a responder, a conscious agent of your own values. The beauty of this tool is its accessibility. You don't need a philosophical degree to implement it. You only need to remember to breathe. The single most effective technique for creating this pause is to consciously take one deep, intentional breath. When the provoking event happens, your body's autonomic nervous system is already gearing up for a fight or flight response. Your heart rate increases, your muscles tense. By shifting your focus to your breath, inhaling slowly and deeply, then exhaling fully, you accomplish two things at once. Physiologically, you signal your body to calm down, interrupting the cascade of stress hormones. Psychologically, you buy yourself precious seconds. The time it takes to complete one deep breath is often all the space you need to disrupt the automatic chain of thought and emotion. It's like hitting the reset button on a crashing computer, giving the system a moment to clear before proceeding. Beyond the breath, another powerful method is the simple act of counting. Silently counting to 3 or even to 10 if the situation is particularly charged forces a cognitive interruption. It gives your higher brain functions, your prefrontal cortex, the seat of reason and foresight, a chance to catch up with your primal, emotional amygdala. In that counted space, you can deploy the other Stoic tools we've discussed. You can ask, is this within my control? You can practice objective representation, describing the event in plain facts. You can even invoke the contemplation of the sage, wondering what a wise person would do. The pause is the blank canvas upon which all the other tools can be applied. Without it, the storm of emotion washes everything away. Consider a real-world scenario. Your partner makes an offhand comment that you interpret as a criticism of your parenting. The immediate, unpaused reaction might be a surge of defensiveness and a sharp retort, igniting a conflict that could last for hours. Now apply the pause. The comment lands. Instead of speaking instantly, you feel the heat rise in your chest, and you consciously choose to take that one deep breath. In the space of that inhalation and exhalation, you create enough distance to witness the feeling of hurt rather than being consumed by it. You might then count to 3, and in that time, a more reasoned perspective can emerge. Perhaps your partner is just tired and expressed themselves poorly. Maybe the comment touched on an insecurity you have, but it wasn't meant as a global attack. From this comma place, you can now choose a response. You might say, that comment felt a little harsh. Can you help me understand what you meant? This approach, born from a mere 3-second pause, transforms a potential argument into an opportunity for connection and understanding. The grace cultivated by this practice is immediate and tangible. It is the difference between sending the angry email you regret and sleeping on it to draft a measured response in the morning. It is the difference between a public outburst that damages your reputation and a quiet, dignified handling of a provocation. Each time you successfully insert this pause, you are not just managing a single situation, you are strengthening a neural pathway. You are training your brain to default to a state of considered response rather than blind reaction. Over time, the pause becomes instinctive. The gap widens naturally, and you find that you are no longer at the mercy of your first impression. You become the calm eye of the storm, able to observe the chaos around you with clarity and choose your path with intention. This is the ultimate embodiment of graceful detachment, not the absence of feeling, but the profound power of choosing how you will express that feeling in the world. Now we come to a tool that often raises eyebrows and is frequently misunderstood, yet it represents one of the most liberating shifts in the Stoic mindset. This is the cultivation of a healthy contempt for external goods, which revolves around the crucial Stoic concept of indifference. It is vital to clarify from the outset that this does not mean the Stoics advocated for a numb, unfeeling existence where you are apathetic to whether you are healthy or sick, rich or poor. That would be absurd and inhuman. Instead, they drew a brilliant and life-changing distinction. They categorized things like wealth, reputation, health, and even life itself as preferred indifference or dispreferred indifference. The key word is indifferent. It means that these things have no inherent power to make you good or bad, virtuous or vicious. Your moral character, your true worth, and your capacity for happiness are entirely independent of them. Think of it this way: if you were given a choice between a brand new, high-performance sports car and a broken-down bicycle with flat tires, which would you prefer? Naturally, you would prefer the sports car. It is more comfortable, more efficient, and more enjoyable. The Stoics would agree, the sports car is a preferred indifferent. However, and this is the critical pivot, your value as a human being, your inner peace, and your ability to live a good life are in no way diminished if you end up with the bicycle. The bicycle is a dispreferred indifferent, but it is still just an indifferent. Your virtue, your courage, your justice, your integrity can be expressed just as fully whether you are driving a Ferrari or pedaling a rusty bike. The vehicle is irrelevant to the driver's skill and character. This contempt is not a sour grape's dismissal of nice things. It is a profound realization that these externals are merely tools and settings for the main event, which is the play of your own character upon the stage of life. This perspective is a direct assault on the foundation of so much modern anxiety, where our self-esteem becomes hopelessly entangled with our external circumstances. We secretly believe, I will be worthy when I get the promotion, or I will be happy when I find the perfect partner, or I will be secure when I have a certain number in my bank account. This is the great trap. It places the source of our happiness and worth outside of ourselves, in things that are fragile, fleeting, and ultimately outside our complete control. What happens when the promotion doesn't come, when the relationship ends, when the market crashes? According to this fragile logic, our worth and happiness crash along with it. Cultivating a healthy contempt for this arrangement is the ultimate act of self-liberation. It is the decision to stop mortgaging your inner peace to the unpredictable fluctuations of fortune. To make this practical, consider how you might apply this to something as pervasive as social status. Many of us spend an enormous amount of energy worrying about how we are perceived by others, our reputation. We crave likes, praise, and recognition, and we fear criticism, rejection, and being overlooked. Now, apply the lens of indifference. Praise and criticism are both indifference. They are external events like the weather. Does a sunny day make you a better person? Does a rainstorm make you a worse one? Of course not. In the same way, someone's flattering opinion does not increase your virtue, and their scorn does not diminish it. Your character is determined by your own actions and intentions, not by the applause or boos from the crowd. When you truly internalize this, you are freed from the exhausting performance of trying to manage other people's perceptions. You can act with integrity, speak your truth, and pursue your purpose regardless of whether it wins you popularity or scorn. This doesn't mean you become reckless or antisocial. You can still prefer to be well regarded, just as you prefer good weather. It is generally more advantageous for achieving your goals, but your core identity and self-respect are no longer on the line. The graceful detachment this tool cultivates is the quiet confidence of someone who knows their value is intrinsic. You can enjoy wealth without being owned by it. You can appreciate good health without defining yourself by it. You can accept praise without needing it for validation. And when these things are taken away, as they inevitably can be, the loss is felt. It is a dispreferred event, but it is not catastrophic. It does not trigger an identity crisis. You remain at your core the same person, capable of virtue and peace, whether you are in a penthouse or a modest apartment, whether you are surrounded by friends or facing a challenge alone. This is the unshakable foundation that allows for true grace under pressure, because your worth was never built on sand in the first place. Having explored the power of the pause, which gives us the space to choose our response, we now arrive at a tool that helps us decide precisely where to direct that chosen energy for maximum impact. This is the practice of mapping out and working within your circle of influence. While this concept shares a family resemblance with the foundational dichotomy of control, it offers a more pragmatic and actionable refinement. The dichotomy gives us the philosophical lens to sort the world into two buckets: what is up to us and what is not. The circle of influence, however, provides a dynamic map for our daily efforts, showing us not just what we control, but where our actions can genuinely create ripples of change. It makes the process of detachment an active, strategic endeavor, not a passive withdrawal. The model is beautifully simple. Imagine drawing 3 concentric circles. The largest, outermost ring is your circle of concern. This encompasses everything you worry about or have an opinion on: global politics, the economy, the behavior of distant celebrities, the long-term trajectory of your industry, and even the personal choices of your adult children. It's a vast and often overwhelming space. The middle ring is your circle of influence. This is smaller, containing the things you can actually affect through your direct actions and efforts. The quality of your work on a project, the tone you set in your home, your health habits, how you treat the cashier at the grocery store, the skills you choose to develop. Then at the very center is the smallest circle, your circle of control. This is your inner citadel, containing only your own thoughts, judgments, and voluntary actions. The very things Epictetus said were truly our own. The challenge, and the source of so much anxiety and frustration, is that most of us spend the majority of our time and mental energy dwelling in the circle of concern. We exhaust ourselves worrying about national scandals we cannot resolve, fretting over a colleague's promotion that we didn't get, or agonizing over macroeconomic trends we are powerless to shift. This is like standing in your living room and trying to push the walls of your house outward to make the yard bigger. It's a futile effort that only leads to burnout. The graceful art of detachment in this context is the conscious decision to stop pushing against the outer walls and to instead turn your attention inward, to cultivate the garden within your circle of influence. The power of this tool lies in making it tangible. Take a moment, perhaps in your evening journaling practice, to actually draw these circles. List your current major worries. You will likely find that most of them fall squarely in the circle of concern. Now, for each item in that outer ring, ask a transformative question. Is there even a small part of this concern that falls within my circle of influence? You may not be able to solve climate change, but you can influence it by reducing your own waste, using public transport, or supporting a local environmental group. You cannot control your company's stock price, but you can influence your professional standing by consistently producing excellent work and being a supportive teammate. This process of mapping is not about dismissing large problems. It's about finding the specific, actionable point where your effort can actually make contact with the problem. It's about moving from a state of global anxiety to a state of focused, effective action. This redirection of energy is an active form of detachment. You are detaching your precious attention from the noisy, chaotic circus of the circle of concern and reattaching it to the quiet, productive workshop of your circle of influence. The remarkable result is that as you pour your energy into your circle of influence, you will often find that it begins to expand. When you focus on being a reliable and knowledgeable team member, your influence within your team grows. When you commit to being a calm and present parent, your influence over the emotional climate of your home strengthens. By tending to your inner circle with diligence, its walls naturally push outward, bringing more of the world under your sway through the respect and competence you demonstrate. Conversely, neglecting your circle of influence to fret about the outer circle of concern causes your influence to shrink, leaving you feeling even more powerless. This practice cultivates a profoundly graceful and pragmatic form of engagement with the world. It allows you to care deeply about large issues without being consumed by them. You can be informed about world events without allowing them to dictate your emotional state every hour of the day. You can hope for the best in others while focusing your efforts on being your best self. It transforms you from a passive worrier into an active agent of change in your own life. The serenity that comes from this is not the serenity of ignorance or indifference. It is the hard-earned serenity of the skilled craftsman who knows that the only way to build a beautiful structure is to focus on laying one solid, well-placed brick at a time, trusting that this focused, influential action is the most powerful contribution anyone can make. This brings us to the very heart of the entire Stoic system, a principle so foundational that it reconfigures our entire understanding of what it means to live a good life. This is the doctrine that character is the sole good. After all the tools we've explored for detaching from externals, we must ask, what are we supposed to attach ourselves to instead? The Stoic answer is unequivocal: your own moral character, your virtue. They argued that things like wealth, health, reputation, and even pleasure are not inherently good. They are, as we discussed, preferred or dispreferred indifference. Conversely, poverty, illness, and obscurity are not inherently evil. The only true good is a virtuous character, acting with wisdom, justice, courage, and self-discipline. The only true evil is a vicious character acting out of foolishness, injustice, cowardice, and intemperance. Internalizing this idea is perhaps the most radical reorientation of values you can undertake. Our entire culture, our advertising, our social media, our educational systems often scream the opposite message. They tell us that our worth is measured by our job title, our net worth, the car we drive, the number of followers we have. The Stoic proposition turns this completely on its head. It says that a person living in a modest apartment, acting with integrity and compassion, is living a more successful and truly prosperous life than a billionaire who achieved their wealth through deceit and lives in a state of constant anxiety and moral compromise. The billionaire may have all the preferred indifference, but they lack the soul good. The person of character possesses the soul good, and thus possesses everything that truly matters for a flourishing human life. The profound implication for graceful detachment is this: when your primary goal in any situation shifts from achieving a specific external outcome to protecting and expressing your virtue, you become virtually invulnerable to the slings and arrows of fortune. Think about a common fear: public speaking. Most people's attachment is to the outcome. They want to be perceived as smart, persuasive, and impressive. They want the applause. This attachment is the source of the anxiety because that outcome is not fully within their control. The audience might be tired, someone might disagree, the technology might fail. Now reframe the goal through the lens of character as the sole good. Your primary objective is no longer to get applause. It is to act with courage by stepping onto the stage despite your fear. It is to act with wisdom by presenting your material clearly and honestly. It is to act with justice by respecting the time and intelligence of your audience. If you accomplish that, if you leave the stage knowing you acted with virtue, you have already succeeded. The applause becomes a pleasant bonus, a preferred indifferent, but it is no longer the measure of your success. Your self-worth remains intact and even strengthened regardless of the external reaction. This mindset transforms how we experience failure and criticism. If your project fails or you receive harsh feedback, the conventional interpretation is a blow to your ego, a personal defeat. But when character is your sole good, you can ask a different set of questions. Did I act with diligence and honesty in my work? Did I handle the feedback with humility and a willingness to learn? If the answer is yes, then the project's failure, while a dispreferred event, cannot touch your core self. It cannot harm the soul good. In fact, it provides an opportunity to practice further virtues, resilience, patience, and the wisdom to learn from the experience. The critic's words, however sharp, cannot diminish your virtue unless you respond with vice, with anger, defensiveness, or deceit. Your character is a fortress that external events cannot storm unless you willingly lower the drawbridge. This is the ultimate graceful detachment. It is not a cold, uncaring withdrawal from the world. It is a passionate, wholehearted engagement with the only aspect of life over which you have absolute sovereignty, your own choices. You can pursue wealth, but you pursue it justly. You can seek relationships, but you engage in them with loyalty and kindness. You can aim for success, but you define that success by the integrity of your effort, not the trophy at the end. Your happiness becomes a byproduct of living in alignment with your character, not a desperate quest for external validation. The Roman philosopher Seneca captured this perfectly when he wrote, "What is the happy life? It is peace of mind and lasting tranquility. This will be yours if you possess greatness of soul. It will be yours if you possess a steadfastness that stays fixed in its own ground, a ground that no external event can disturb. That unshakable ground is the quality of your own character. By making it the sole good, you anchor yourself to the only thing that can never be taken from you, allowing you to navigate the turbulent seas of life with a grace and peace that circumstances are powerless to destroy." And so we arrive at the final tool in our Stoic toolkit, one that brings our entire journey full circle by transforming the very start of each day. This is the practice of morning preparation, a proactive ritual of readiness that sets the tone for everything that follows. If the evening review is about learning from the day that has passed, the morning preparation is about consciously arming yourself for the day that is about to begin. It's the deliberate act of sitting down with yourself, even for just a few minutes, and mentally rehearsing the challenges you are likely to face. Rather than being caught off guard by life's inevitable irritations, you preemptively welcome them as expected guests, reframing them from disruptive surprises into planned opportunities for growth. The core of this practice is to move through your upcoming day in your mind's eye, but with a specific Stoic filter. You don't just visualize a successful outcome, you anticipate the obstacles. Who is the person you might find difficult to deal with today? What is the task that you've been dreading for its monotony or complexity? Where are the potential friction points, the traffic jam, the demanding client, the bureaucratic hurdle? As you identify each one, you pause and apply the principles we've discussed. You remind yourself of the dichotomy of control. You cannot control this person's behavior, but you can control your response. You invoke the concept of amor fati, deciding to love this very challenge as the raw material for practicing patience. You might even contemplate the view from above, seeing this momentary frustration as a tiny speck in the vast cosmos. This mental rehearsal is like a fire drill for the soul. When the actual alarm sounds, you don't panic, you simply execute the plan you've already established. Consider the difference this makes in a concrete scenario. Imagine you have a meeting scheduled with a colleague who is often dismissive and critical of your ideas. Without morning preparation, you might spend the hours beforehand in a state of low-grade anxiety, your mind rehearsing arguments and feeding a sense of resentment. When the meeting begins and the criticism comes, it feels like a personal attack, triggering a defensive and emotionally charged reaction. Now apply the morning preparation. As part of your morning ritual, you consciously bring this colleague to mind. You acknowledge that they will likely act in their typical manner. You then decide in the calm of the morning how you will choose to respond. You might set an intention. I will listen to their feedback without interruption. I will look for any valid points within their criticism. I will respond with factual clarity, not emotional defensiveness. This is my opportunity to practice objectivity and patience. When you walk into that meeting, you are no longer a passive target. You are an active participant who has already chosen the higher road. The criticism lands not as a surprise, but as an expected part of the script, and you are prepared to play your role with grace. This practice is the ultimate form of inoculation. Just as a vaccine introduces a weakened virus to build immunity, introducing your mind to potential hardships in a controlled, reflective state strengthens your psychological immune system. The Roman philosopher Seneca was a strong advocate for this. He wrote, "The mind should be exercised each day both for its own sake and for the sake of the body." So you should close your doors and seek out that which is best for your mind. He advised starting the day by saying to yourself, "You may expect today to encounter interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness." This sounds bleak, but its purpose is profoundly liberating. By anticipating these behaviors as standard features of the human landscape, you remove their power to shock and derail you. The person who cut you off in traffic is no longer an anomaly ruining your morning. They are simply acting according to the predictable script of human haste and distraction. Your peace is prepared for them. The grace cultivated by this daily ritual is the grace of the prepared mind. It allows you to move through your day not as a series of reactive emergencies, but as a continuous flowing practice. The tedious task becomes a meditation on focus and diligence. The frustrating delay becomes a chance to practice acceptance and find a moment of quiet. The difficult conversation becomes a workshop for courage and compassion. By starting your day with this intentional preview, you are essentially programming your default responses. You are shifting your mindset from one of hoping for a smooth, easy day to one of being ready for a full, human day, complete with all its inherent challenges. This doesn't create a pessimistic outlook. It creates a resilient and profoundly optimistic one, because your confidence is no longer tied to everything going right, but is rooted in your proven ability to handle whatever comes your way with wisdom and composure. Your morning preparation becomes the solid foundation upon which you build a day of purposeful action, a day where you are not ruled by events, but where you rule over them with the steady hand of a practiced Stoic. And there you have it, a journey through 25 timeless Stoic tools, each a stepping stone toward that profound inner resilience we've been exploring. We began by learning to sort the world with the dichotomy of control, recognizing where our true power lies, and we've just concluded with the proactive practice of preparing our minds each morning for the day ahead. This entire path has been about one fundamental shift, moving from being a passive recipient of life's events to becoming an active architect of your response. The graceful detachment we've discussed is the very opposite of withdrawal. It is the key that unlocks a more vibrant, purposeful, and compassionate engagement with everything and everyone around you. It's the difference between being a leaf blown by the wind and being the tree firmly rooted with branches that can sway without breaking. This serene command over your inner world is the ultimate source of true strength. It is not the loud, brittle strength of domination or control over others, but the quiet, unshakable strength that comes from self-mastery. It's the strength that allows you to listen with patience when you want to interrupt, to offer kindness in the face of rudeness, and to persist with integrity when shortcuts are tempting. This is the fortress of peace that the Stoics promised, a peace built not on the absence of challenges, but on your cultivated ability to meet them with wisdom. When your happiness and self-worth are no longer chained to external outcomes, you are finally free to participate in life fully, to love deeply without fear of loss, and to act courageously without the desperate need for a specific result. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a simple, actionable invitation. Don't feel overwhelmed by the number of tools we've covered. The most powerful step you can take is the first one. Look back over this list and ask yourself, which single practice resonates most with me right now? Perhaps it's the simple act of taking a single breath before you react, creating that crucial pause. Maybe it's the liberating practice of the reserve clause, adding fate permitting to your plans to soften the sting of disappointment. Or it could be the profound perspective of the view from above, reminding you of your small but significant place in the vast cosmos. Choose just one, commit to practicing it for a week, see how it begins to subtly reshape your experience. I'm genuinely curious to hear which tool you're drawn to. Share your choice or your experiences with any of these practices in the comments below. Let's create a conversation around living with more grace. And if this guide has been a helpful companion on your journey, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll continue to explore timeless wisdom for navigating the complexities of modern life. Thank you for investing this time in yourself. Remember, the goal is not perfection but practice. Each mindful moment, each conscious choice is a brick in the foundation of that unshakable inner citadel. Go gently, and may you find peace in the practice.